And we're going to dive in. I made a little list here over on the other screen of questions that people had, which I will just pull up. Okay. So Marie had one quick question, which is, what do you call a sensitivity reader for historical accuracy? Personally, I would just call that a beta reader with a specific focus, but I don't know. Does anybody else have a different like title that one would use for that, or something you've come across?
Sorry, what was the question?
What do you call a sensitivity reader who's reading for historical accuracy?
Okay, so I have to say, I don't know what sensitivity means.
Yeah, so usually you get a sensitivity reader if, like, let's say you had a character from a different cultural background than yourself, and you wanted somebody to read that and let you know, had you approached that appropriately, was there things you needed to change, or, you know, were there specific issues that weren't dealt with the way you maybe wanted to? So like, let's say you're dealing with women who've been in abusive situations. Maybe your main character has sort of gone to a safe house, run away from a bad marriage, whatever. But you haven't personally been in that situation, but you know someone who has, and they've offered to read it to see if you've kind of captured the essence appropriately of what that situation was all about. So those would be two different types of sensitivity readers. Yeah, but a beta reader is just somebody who reads it and gives you feedback on a specific thing, which is not very different from a sensitivity reader, except that sensitivity readers are usually employed when the subject is kind of like contentious or a little bit, a little bit of a risky sort of adventure. Whereas I usually think of beta readers as just people who are telling you like, oh, you didn't use that handgun the right way, or, you know, whatever, you're missing X, Y, Z in terms of your, the way the character was developed. I wasn't really relating. Like, you can use beta readers in whatever context you want. You just tell them what feedback you're looking for. Does that make sense? Yeah, ish. Okay. Okay. And Brianna was asking about guidelines for ARC recruiting. So you've approached a few people who have agreed, but you're wondering how to incorporate screening while asking the favor. So do you mean you're just not sure like what questions you should ask people before you give them your ARC copy? Or can you tell us a little bit more what you're looking for there?
Well, I guess I had asked a few people and they agreed, and I through social media, so I don't know a lot about them other than they seem to like romance and follow and review romance. And then after, I kind of thought, oh, you know, maybe I should have had a bit of a screening process, because you mentioned that very briefly, I think last week, and maybe there's more in your book, which I should go back and look for too. But just, you know, how do you sort of ask for a favor when you're a new writer and say, by the way, you know, I need to know a little more about you and what that should be exactly.
A lot of people, I mean, Booksprout has it kind of built in, where if you're using a tool like Booksprout, and we've talked about that in a whole bunch of office hours, so go and do a search in the office hours library if you haven't already for Booksprout.
I have actually an ARC with Booksprout. I think I have about 6 people, and that should be coming due soon. So
right. Perfect. So they kind of filter for you, right? Like they will, you know, if you've checked the box, I mean, that says don't let people review if they're not in good standing or whatever, like you decide your level of permissions on there, but they kind of handle that interface. So there's no additional screening that you can do with that. But for yourself, you can take anyone who's interested and just have them fill out a little Google form that says like, which platforms do you review on, and have them check the boxes of, you know, do they do Goodreads? Do they do whatever? Do they do whatever? And, you know, just ask a few base questions if you're worried that people might not be legit reviewers. Like if you think it's just somebody who's trying to get your book files, then that's a different set of questions. Then like at the beginning, you really just, if they've said yes, they're willing, and then they're going to post a review, great. It's more like after the first round that you'll be filtering.
Oh, okay.
Right. So like you can ask people to send you a screenshot of their review when it's posted, or if you're going to track who reviews and who doesn't. I don't do that because it takes a long time, and I just think I'm happy to have everybody who's interested go ahead with it. And then, you know, it just depends. If you're up to the point where you have 500 people who want to ARC your book and you need to filter them, well, okay, start asking more detailed questions. But in the beginning, you really just want to know, can they review on the platforms you want reviews on? That's kind of the key thing. And if they can't, then okay, that's not great. You do want to be able to see if they're leaving bad reviews.
Yeah,
Right?
I was kind of wondering about that, because it seems like all of the books have such high reviews, you know, like almost all the books that you look at on Amazon are like 4 or 5 stars.
Well, usually you're pulling your reviewers from your biggest fans. That's partly why you build a mailing list, is because then you email your mailing list, who are people who love you or they wouldn't have signed up. And then you ask them for who wants to review. And so some people build an ARC team for each book. Like they just do a send out to their mailing list and say, I'm looking for ARC reviewers, you know, have them click here and fill out a Google form if they want a copy. And then you ask them their name, their best email address, which platforms they review on. And then you send them the document, and then you just ask them to fire you a screenshot or whatever of when their review is posted. And most people will do that. And then you check them off your list. If there's anybody who doesn't, then you can ban them. If you're using Booksprout or you're using BookFunnel to deliver your review copies, then if you do find something gets pirated, they can figure out who it was. So then you can track that back, right? Because they all have a unique code in them. So
yeah, I guess just kind of thinking too, like I just got a review that was 3 stars, and I don't know where that came from, but I have Booksprout and Hidden Gems coming out later in the month, so it should be interesting to see where that goes. But you know, if it's all going to be like 3-star reviews when all the books on Amazon have 4 or 5, then
well, you want a 4 and 5 star average. You don't want every single review to be 4 or 5, because then it looks like you faked it. So you actually want some reviews that are not 100% positive, because that adds legitimacy to what's there. Right? So some people will ban anybody who gave them a 3-star review, but I don't think that that's necessarily the best policy. If they're like totally scathing and don't like your books, well, yeah, they shouldn't be on the list, right? Like they shouldn't be reviewing. So occasionally you will get somebody who's like on a mission to like educate you that you shouldn't have sex in your books, and so they'll take an ARC copy and then rate it badly and then tell everyone there's too much sex, right? So there will be some of those people, because there are. But if some people just only ever give 3 stars, right? Like, so it's, as long as the tone of the review itself is fairly positive, or if there was something they didn't like, they're really specific, it can actually work as a filter to help the right readers read your book. So yeah, I mean,
I would also say, like, I'm one that I'll if I'm trying to decide whether or not to buy a book, I'll ignore the 4 and 5 reviews, because those are people who like the book. I'll say, okay, this book is rated like 4.5 stars. What did the people who didn't like it say? And then I try and say, okay, are they saying things that are important to me that I'm likely to not like this book too? Or is the stuff that they're saying like either crazy or specific to them? Or so I think those reviews could be helpful without being detrimental.
Sure. And as far as the tagline feedback goes, I think just pop it in the sidebar and then people can drop feedback in there. I'm just going to tackle a couple of Bonnie's questions as well so that we get through those too. So I'm trying to complete front and back matter for the ebook. Do I need to include the original copyright date along with the new one on the copyright page? That is generally what's done. Yeah, I would put originally published or first edition published blank, second edition published blank. Does that make sense?
There's multiple editions of the original one. So like, you know, like they did different printing. So I guess those were like.
Well, were they actually different editions or just different printings? Because if you
Just
reprint
different
this,
printings. Just
yeah, so
different
then it's just like originally published in 19 whatever.
Do I have to say by who or anything, or just originally published?
It's not a bad idea to do that. It doesn't hurt anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's a traditional publisher, just adds legitimacy to the whole deal, right? That's not
Yeah,
a
I
bad
guess so.
thing. And a way to contact you in back matter. Do you have an email address option attached to your website? Okay, so we should find out where your email is going. If your contact form on your site is not going to your address, it means something is off there. So that is something we'll need to look at. So we can, I mean, your book's not coming out for a bit, right? So if you put that on next week's office hour agenda, I can put a note in my calendar that make sure we tackle that first. Because what we'll want to do is you can bring up your website contact form, and then we'll look at the settings and see how it's doing. So that would be
Okay, but do I have to have all that stuff ready for the ARC? Because that's what I'm just trying to get everything done so I can get it all put in vellum and up, and
right.
so I can start moving the process along. So can I just skip
you
that part
can-
for now?
Yeah, you can skip it, but you can just make your email address and then we connect it after, right? It's just
Like a new email address?
well, yeah. So Marianne's put in the chat here, like you own a domain, right? And we set up your hosting through HostGator in the end, didn't we?
I think so.
Yeah, so you can just make any email address you want at your domain. So like info@bonniegoldberg.com was the suggested one in the sidebar there, which is totally doable. So you just decide what you want it to be, anything at bonniegoldberg.com, right? If that's what your website address is.
Okay.
And then put that in the book and then we'll make it work.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm just putting a note in next week's office hour time so that I remember we are going to tackle new email creation in HostGator. And to do that, you'll need to have your HostGator login information
Okay.
for your cPanel. And you'll also need your website, your WordPress website login info to your dashboard
Okay.
there. So
I'll go find that stuff.
so bring those and make sure you've got both tabs able to log in, and then I'll just talk you through it. You'll actually do the driving.
Thank you.
Okay. And should I include other books by me if they aren't related to writing books? I don't think it hurts to put all of the books by you in your also buy list.
So links, just as links so people can buy them?
Yeah. I mean, if you've got a list in the front and or back of the book that say, other titles also by Bonnie Goldberg, whatever, then you list the books and the names should be a link.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there's no reason not to, really. The only reason you wouldn't link is, are you going exclusive with Amazon or wide?
For right now, I'm going to go exclusive, and then that might change.
Okay. So then for now, you could put links of where to buy them on Amazon. If there's links to buy them in other stores, they get a little bit cranky. And sometimes they won't process those. Apple won't process anything that says Amazon anywhere in the book. But you can also set up a universal book link and then link to that. And then it doesn't, like, even if you go wide later, you don't have to go back and change the link that's inside your book.
So a universal book link for each title.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll need to remember how to do that.
Yeah, if you Google it, we've definitely done demos in office hours before.
Okay.
And again, if you don't find it, we can do a quick demo next week.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and we have 2 more minutes until I have another meeting. So Brianna's just saying, I have revised my tagline for curtain call and would love final thoughts before sending to the designer. Dancer, director, there's a line, will I cross it? That's the current tagline, correct?
Yes.
It
So-
sort of sounds like, is she willing to cross the line from being a dancer to a director?
Yeah, I had exactly the same thought.
Okay. Because I had dancer, director, will I cross that line? And shared it and then got some feedback. This was actually someone's revision of it. So we need some more work.
Yeah, that's the only thing that really pops out, is that it's not clear, the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So is it that she was a dancer and deciding whether she's going to become a director, or the other way around?
No, it's like a romance between a dancer and a director, and trying to somehow say that there's a clear line between a dancer and a director.
So why not dancer, director, will they cross the line?
Oh, yeah.
Is that
better,
okay if
for
it's
sure.
written in first person or from her perspective?
Yeah, the tagline is not an indication of point of view necessarily, right? Like, it's about the book. It's not about, like, your whole blurb is in first person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that. I think more important is to make it clear that you're not talking about internally this person switching from one role to the other.
Yeah. Or what
That's
about will
definitely-
we cross the line?
Yeah, will we cross it would be better. Because that indicates at least there's two parties involved, which immediately switches the context,
Mm-hmm.
which seems like a good thing. All right. Something to ponder. And we are at 12:15, so we are going to have to pause there. We will be back next week, same time, same place, 11 a.m. on Tuesday. And in the meantime, you don't have to wait the whole week. You're allowed to just put comments in the Mighty Network. If you have questions about specific things, just dump the question in there whenever you need it, and then you'll get answers likely from me and also from other people, which is beneficial. So yeah, don't be shy about posting specific questions in there. That is.
Do you want them under a certain category or just in the general?
I think it depends what they're about. If there's a book to business question that's something specifically about the business part there, you can do that. If there's something specifically about publishing, you can put it in that section. Just trying to remember what we called that bit. Yeah, so basically, if there's an obvious section that fits it, put it there, and if not, just throw it in the general conversation. Don't ever hesitate to post something because you're not sure where it goes. We can always move things, and we can also just get the answers and then worry about that part later. This is not a no gray area allowed kind of scenario. It's our space. We may do with it as we will. All right. Thank you all for coming out, and we will see you next week and around the interwebs. Happy writing.